Welcome to Dark Loops of the Valkyrie Files, a podcast in which we discuss Marvel's fantastic new series, Loki. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Jordan, aka Zombie Scotty, cognitive psychologist, philosopher at Illinois State University. And tonight we discuss episode 1, Glorious Purpose. Fellow Valkyrie, please say hello to the audience and tell them a little something about who you are. And we will start with Leandra.
Hi, I'm Leandra Parris. I'm a coordinator and professor of school psychology out at William and Mary in Virginia, and I do work on trauma-informed care, social justice, and peer relationships.
Fantastic. Cianna.
Hello, I'm a public radio and podcast producer out of Chicago, Illinois.
Fantastic. And Tanya.
I am a professor of school psychology out in Denver, and I'm super interested in looking at intellectual disabilities and how we train future school psychologists. I'm super excited to be here.
Fantastic. So here's the format. I asked each of you to come up with a favorite character, favorite line, favorite scene. Just one of you just jump in, tell us your favorite character, favorite line, favorite scene, and I'm certain discussion will follow.
Can I start with favorite character? Because I'm so excited.
Sure. Yeah.
Hunter B-15. Yes. So I don't know if it's just like our time together with Lovecraft Country, but the fact that, is it Wunmi? I don't think I'm saying it correctly, but that
Ruby.
actor is, yeah, she played Ruby.
Yeah.
I love, as soon as she shows up, she's just commandeering. She like, it's just, I don't know. I think it might be just that I'm just so in love with her as Ruby that it like transferred over, but she doesn't have a huge role, but when she was in a scene, she handled Loki like a badass, and I loved it.
All my notes say Ruby.
She's B, is it B-15? I tried looking it up before I thought.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It is. She's Hunter B-15.
Cianna, did you know that was going to be what I was going to say?
I didn't actually. I actually picked Loki as my favorite character, but I did have Wunmi Masako as an honorable mention. Yeah, she's absolutely unflappable in almost every role that she does. But specifically, like, I like her in this sort of bad cop role, which she did so well in. I don't know if you guys saw End of the Fucking World, which on Netflix, which is also based on a comic book. No, yeah, she's great, and I hope to see a lot more from her this season. It was a pleasant surprise. I didn't do too much background. I kind of just wanted to go into the series blind, and I was pleasantly surprised when she appeared on my screen.
Yeah, she's got to be around. And what I mean is there's so many great comedy duos that they've set up, right? Her with Owen Wilson, her with Loki. There's just a different vibe in each of those duos. And the comedy works well in all of them. So I think they've definitely got to keep her around.
I loved when she was in the background and Loki was like grandstanding and getting ready to, like, I always call this like a mage pose where he's like getting ready to like bring out his powers, and she's just like giggling in the background because she knows it's not going to work.
He's trying to use his powers. That was fantastic. Anyone else? Favorite character, favorite line, favorite scene?
I'll go. I gotta take my hat off to Tom Hiddleston and the editors. This was Loki is a very big character and a really big personality. And, you know, we had WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is a very slow burn, you know, into these characters, the different sides of their personality. And what ultimately their mission would be for the next, 7 or 8 episodes. Whereas with Loki, we just were presented with almost every side of this enormous character in 60 minutes. And I think Tom Hiddleston just did a great job. Just a fantastic job. It was, I'll just end it there. But yeah, I was very impressed.
I will say, I don't know. I mean, outside of Endgame and Infinity Wars or whatever, I've never actually like teared up when I was watching Marvel. Like, it never was like enough to like get me emotional until this latest series of like shows with them, and watching Tom Hiddleston act out, watching his life play before his eyes and like watching him die at the hands of Thanos, like his whole face just like encapsulated, I think, everything that happened in the entire season of WandaVision in like 30 seconds. And so I have to say, yes, I think that I was a little nervous about Loki in particular, because I feel like he's done the fake death so many times that I thought this could be a really cheesy interpretation of what was happening. But watching him go from the version of Loki that we see at the end of Avengers all the way up to the one who ends up sacrificing himself at the, in Infinity Wars, in the span of that short amount of time, was just very poignant. And I think that was really well done. And it's something that needed to be taken care of in this first episode. So I would agree with you. I think that he really brought his A game to that moment.
Yeah. Season 1, episode 1 Loki. I mean, I think that would be a heavy lift for any actor.
Yeah.
But,
and writers, I mean, I thought the writers, they just brought their A game, all these different genres of humor thrown together. British humor with Loki sort of expressing the Monty Python-esque foil for, sort of British austerity, and Owen Wilson coming in with just deconstructing everything he says with a joke was just fantastic. What I really like about what they set up, one thing I really like about what they set up for Loki is that now, if the timeline is actually corrected, he's responsible for his mother's death. So there is going to be this incredibly intense, do I do this? I mean, and I thought that was very clever, because it brings about this bizarre conflict in his character over the episodes of what should he do. And they're definitely going to focus on his mom. So.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did any of y'all rewatch the Thor movies or Avengers movies in preparation for this?
No, I gotta tell you, I avoid the Thor one except for Ragnarok. Like, I can't go back. I can't go back.
Ragnarok was the comic relief for the entire Marvel series. Jeff Goldblum as the bad guy. It was just one of the best.
Probably my favorite film in the entire
the best.
It was great.
So to answer your question, I didn't.
Okay,
neither did I.
I probably will, but
after WandaVision, my wife and I went back and watched all of the Marvel movies in chronological order just to make sure the vibe was right, and what they're doing, with these characters, it's like now we get to see the whole thing from Loki's perspective. Now we get to see the whole thing from Wanda's perspective. Now we get to see the whole thing from Falcon and Winter Soldier's perspective. And it's fun doing that, because while you're watching this whole universe, it's not like you sit there, okay, and I'm going to watch 28 movies from this perspective and 28 from this. And I enjoy, particularly for me, WandaVision. I just loved seeing all of that from her perspective. Very, very cool. So why'd you ask about us watching Thor movies?
No, I just wanted to know if anybody had done a rewatch in preparation for this, because I haven't. So there might be some details that I'm a little cloudy on.
Yeah, like I forgot that he told them to go to the left, and that like I know that at some point Thor says something, and like I know they talk about him, like Loki being particularly attached to his mom, but it never occurred to me, which is why I'm glad they did the montage that they did, because I think it helped us remember these I don't know what the word is, but these monumental, like, cornerstone moments for Loki that I think are going to continue to happen, even though they haven't happened to him yet. Right. So
I think there was one little scene early on that I just watched the first time, and it was okay, that was cool. And I thought, is that little girl with the blue gum, is that Joan of Arc?
Oh,
I got the impression that she was Joan of Arc.
Oh yeah, it was. I thought it was a boy too.
I thought it was a boy.
I thought it was a girl. I thought it was Joan of Arc. And when he asked who did this, she points to a picture of the devil. And then later on, when Owen Wilson is telling Loki what they're going to do, I got this real American Godsy vibe. That all of these gods are somehow involved with Loki, or he's the one that's going to help them be able to help Owen Wilson chase them down and straighten out the timeline. And I just go ahead, interrupt me. I'm just babbling. No, I just think it's interesting when you look at everybody that was working at the TVA. It's an incredibly diverse group of people, right? And then I like the vibe of that diverse group of people running the right timeline, and I'm wondering how much they're going to propose that certain things that we've lived through are misdirected timelines, and it's the correcting of a certain set of gods that's actually going to bring things back to the way they should be. I don't know. That's just a vibe I got out of what I was watching. That wasn't supposed to be a non-starter, man.
I got major Doctor Who vibes from this, which kind of made me like, really? Because Marvel, they don't do time travel so well. I was not impressed with the time traveling in Endgame, and they kind of use time travel as a plot device.
Yep.
Rather than actually playing with time travel and following the rules of time, or even establishing rules around time travel. So there is only one Time Lord. Let's establish that now. And I mean, I hope they've taken some time to work through some.
I feel like this is their attempt to try and clean up the messiness. They're like, no, that was supposed to happen, and that's right. So you should believe that that's right. And so we'll see.
We're okay with this wibbly wobbly. Isn't that what we say in Doctor Who? Timey wimey wibbly.
Exactly.
I did get that vibe too, because I feel, although now that makes me think of Owen Wilson like as the Doctor, and I'm a little freaked out because all I hear every time he opens his mouth is "wow." So like, like that would be like his catchphrase, like his Doctor Who catchphrase.
I cannot believe he did not say it.
He has to say it at some point.
He will. Like, it's going to be the last scene in the last episode. He'll be like, "Wow," and everybody can take a shot.
That's what we're gonna have to do. Like, if he ends up saying at some point, we're doing that as part of the podcast. But you know, I agree. I got a lot of the Doctor Who thing too, and like the fact that you end up realizing at the end that there's this other version of Loki running around and like blah blah blah, and like it's kind of trying to like clean things up. So I can see that, but I hope they don't try to pull off the British humor of Doctor Who, because we should just leave that.
That's exactly what I got. And I thought Owen Wilson was the perfect person to bring in for the comedy. I think his acting along with his lines, he's just such a perfect foil for the arrogance of Loki. He's going to be able to tolerate Loki's mischief and still keep himself buoyant and making fun of him.
He doesn't just tolerate it though. He like embraces it. I think that's a good match for him. Like he's like, when he loses him at that one point, he was like, yeah. Sorry, I interrupted. I just have to say, like, I think he does more than tolerate the mischief.
Yeah,
exactly. And the acting and the writing for me is just perfect. And I found myself laughing like I used to laugh watching Doctor Who. And it's not British humor. The thing is, it's Loki's that sort of austere British foil for Owen Wilson's character, and it's not slapstick, right? It's
very dry
and I would argue it approaches a certain Python level of wittiness in terms of its absurdity. And so they're trying, but I think they're really working with Owen Wilson, and I gotta suspect they had long conversations. Saying we hear what Cianna said, and we cannot go in there and try to do Dr. Who humor. We have to do our own humor, but do it this way. Because I laughed like almost every scene. There was something funny.
I do think they've started to do that more with Loki, because in Ragnarok they had the get help scene, which was very Monty Python, very Doctor Who. So I think they are putting it that way. So here's my one like worry though, is that we're gonna try to explain away Loki's evilness and his misdeeds and his horrific actions. I mean, we already have a ton of fan theory that's like the whole time he was controlled by the scepter, it wasn't really him. Like, nah, he did some awful stuff. So like, I think they're going to have to use the humor, but also skirt the line of not letting it override the fact that like Loki did some pretty horrendous things that he needs to account for. So just putting that out there before it gets lost.
No, I'm with you.
No, so I think what I've really enjoyed about these series is how well they're humanizing these larger than life characters. And I feel like the movies like touch on a couple of them, but they're very like scene driven, whereas these shows, as they're intended to, are character driven. And you really got to see like and I enjoyed WandaVision the most so far, and I appreciated seeing that nuance and that duality of like what is good for everyone versus what is good for me, and that you live in shades of gray, right? Like none of us are good and none of us are bad, and I really appreciated that, and I'm hopeful that that Loki will do the same thing. And you know, I feel like it's one of the things I'm really glad that they brought back the main actor. I always confuse his last name, Tom Hiddleston, and I always want to say Tim Huddleston, which is not a real person. But I'm glad they brought him back because, you know, it's the nuances that he carries in his face, right? Like when he opened that drawer and saw the Infinity Stones, you literally saw like all of the Marvel movies go through in his eyes. He's like, so powerful, so meaningless. What have I been doing? You know, like, and I appreciate that multifaceted identity development that these episodic shows are bringing. So
yeah, I'm totally with you on the hopes for his character. We can't save Loki. He's the god of mischief. And what I really liked is the scene where Owen Wilson's character says, well, your job is to create a space for everybody else to find their better selves. And that's kind of deflating, and he felt bad. But what I like about it is that instead of Loki being a separate thing from the rest of them, we can find a sort of approach to identity that's got all of this in all of us, and that's just the one that's major in him. And finding a way to appreciate that chaos is not, how do I say this? Chaos is not, we work to avoid chaos, but I'll get a little, all order emerges out of chaos, and being alive is a struggle to sustain some kind of order. So he's essential, and finding a way to say that without saving him, I think, is their struggle, because a happy Loki is not what the world needs, right?
Right.
All righty. Let me see. Any other scenes that you all really liked?
I will say, Tanya, I had that down. It was I had two favorite scenes. One was definitely when you see when Casey opens his cart and you see the Infinity Stones just sitting there. And he makes the reference that some of the people who work at the TVA use these stones as paperweights. So I did some digging. I was freaking out, like absolutely freaking out when I saw that. And I was like, okay, so Infinity Stones only work in their natural universe.
Right.
Okay. I felt a lot better. Like, this is...
No, I literally texted Leandra to be like, oh my God, are they resetting everything? Yeah. Are they like gonna bring back all of the characters? Are they resetting all the timelines? At that moment, I was like,
yeah, I spent a lot of time and money on those movies.
Yeah, no joke, man.
I love how the first thing she's like, I spent hours. No. I just spent hundreds of dollars, and now
some
you're
things
telling
have
me
to
all
be
of
canon,
this.
man.
Yeah, right.
It's about paperweight.
No.
I feel like you and Loki were on the same wavelength. He's like, wait, what have I been dying for all of this time?
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah.
I sacrificed my family. I got my mother murdered. Like,
Game of Thrones, you'll never do that to me again. Like, I refuse.
No.
No.
It was all a dream.
My other favorite scene was the end credits. I thought the end credits for the show were brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I love the world of the TVA, the sort of mashup of, you know, this futuristic and also vintage mashup. I mean, I got such a kick out of seeing that standard perforated printing paper.
Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful. I love the aesthetics of this show. Absolutely.
I agree. I love the scene where they're say it again.
And the music is excellent as well. So the credits were a very pleasant surprise.
So when I saw the credits, I literally wrote down power is equal to paperwork. And I just laughed because I was like, ha, 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 ha. Is this a life lesson that I have to do paperwork to become the ultimate authority? I just have to live in paperwork forever. But anyway.
Exactly. No, I just wrote that phrase down. We'll close the show with it tonight.
But
exactly.
Speaking of quotes, I feel like we have to talk about Loki as a white male god saying that the greatest lie is the Song of Freedom.
Yeah.
I like texted Tanya and I was like, it seems so poignant, but coming out of his mouth like that, like, I don't know. I had reactions. What are your reactions?
Reactions are that, like, Loki is very white, and let's talk about the rollout of these shows where we had the WandaVision, which was clearly for women, and then we had the Falcon and Winter Soldier, which put all the race in, like, you know, we're definitely going to be talking about race. We're confronting this, and then we have Loki, and it was a good episode. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very excited, but the praise, people are like, this is the greatest hour of television I have ever seen in my life. And I kind of feel that it was definitely catering to, you know, your white Marvel fanboys. Like, we got you. This is going to be, you know what I mean? Thanks for sticking in there with us. And now you have your...
No, it's yours.
White.
I think they're setting a trap. I think, and what I mean is, you look at everybody that works at the TVA, and it's an extremely diverse group.
Mm-hmm.
Loki is completely under control. Everybody laughs at him. All of his godlike, all of the bravado is ridiculed. And I really do think we're going to see a deconstruction of the the white godhead. I really do think, because that's why I thought that scene where I thought it was Joan of Arc pointed to the picture of the devil, right? It reminds me of a Supernatural episode where Sam and Dean go to a hotel, and it's a pantheon of pagan gods, and they're trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do about these Christian gods blowing up the universe. And there's this great argument between Kali and Gabriel, and Kali basically says, look, there's billions of us, man. You guys think you're in charge of everything. Who the hell do you think you are, ripping up the planet because of you? And I really did get that kind of vibe spread out a little bit over the whole episode. So I think you're right, Cianna. I think they set it up. It might feel like that to those that are looking for that. And I think it's just going to close in on them, and we're going to get a fantastic tale.
I mean, I hope you're right, but I just think the media reaction has been a little just like, calm down.
Yeah, with him.
Episode 1, it was good. It was entertaining. You know what I mean? Wilson and Hiddleston have, you know, classic Hollywood chemistry. I mean, I really didn't get all of that. I didn't. I thought it was a really good episode, and it's piqued my interest. I'm looking forward to the rest of the series, but
I agree.
Tripping over themselves.
I
think about this show.
I'm with you. I was like, oh, you know, come on, it's Disney, and this is capitalism. I was like, I mean, they've set up a redemption arc essentially for Loki, right? Like, this is his moment, and you have to hit all of your populations, right? You gotta hit the women, you gotta hit the people of color, you've got to hit all of the fanboys. I think
misunderstood white dudes who try to take over the world.
Yeah, our emo characters. I feel like I think Marvel does a good job of like dropping hints about queerness without really exploring it, just to keep people like hooked. I'm like, like Disney is, you should just observe Disney to understand capitalism. Like, you've got everybody like hooked. They're kind of like the TVA. They're controlling all of us. So, but yeah, I think that there's something to be said where the judge and Hunter B-15, they're both women of color, but the central characters are still two white men, right? Like, I think that the we picked up on Hunter B-15 really resonating with us, but she's always in the background, and she's set up to be that stern figure, which then I think brings up that angry Black woman stereotype again. And how do you counter that with the good old boy Mobius, right? I think that there's a lot of tropes, and the first episode fit neatly into a lot of those tropes, which I think in some ways doesn't make for the best hour of television. I think it was humorous. I think there were some poignant moments. I think that there was a little bit to keep everybody engaged. But to me, it was, I'm more curious about the plot at this point than the characters. And that's why I'm watching it. I'm curious to see where they'll take the timeline. And I hope that they keep thinking through this concept of power, because I think power is underlying this whole episode, and there's multiple types of power that are coming up. And that would be like, if we were to be finding a theme for the episode, I think the theme is like power. So,
and like we're saying, you have these two Black women who are both notable, esteemed actresses, Musako and Gugu Mbatha-Raw. And Gugu Mbatha-Raw specifically, who was playing a judge, and Owen Wilson overturned her ruling in 2 seconds. So it's great that they're there. But no, in this universe, they really don't wield any real power. I was just like, oh, okay. So, okay.
Right. And B-15, Loki ends up catching her in the time loop thing too. So there's a lot of examples of that. I did want to say quickly, that episode of Supernatural you referenced, Gabriel actually was pretending to be Loki.
Yes, he was.
So just to put that out there, because he was trying to hide that he was a Christian god or angel or whatever. So there you go. I think you guys bring up a lot of good points too, where like, how do you, and I had this problem with Westworld too, with the Man in Black, like how do you centralize someone like Loki without playing into or acknowledging power and privilege, right? And like the triple ripple effect that has, like they're trying to bring him down and make him recognize that, I think, with the Infinity Stones and playing out his life, but like, I don't know, that doesn't really apply in the real world.
You gotta pull a Dolores and destroy the world around him.
Well, I think
it was just the wellspring of his power. That's,
it's, I think that in some ways the show was trying to hit us over the head with the fact that they are trying to bring down his power, right? So Leandra, your favorite line was also my favorite line, which was like, and I wrote it down because I'm horrible with quotes, and it's, the first and most oppressive lie ever uttered was the song of freedom. And then it goes on and it says, there's a fork in every road, yet the wrong path always taken. And then it talks about how he should be the one making decisions for everybody. And I also texted this to you, which was juxtaposed against him raging against people making decisions for him, right? So he's saying, how dare you tell me what to do? How dare you collar me? How dare you take away my free will? And also saying, I need to take away the free will of everybody else. And I felt like that was so, it was like almost over the head with it. And this idea of power and this idea of will, Loki almost mirrored the TVA, right? Like, who is trying to take away the will of people by keeping them, the TVA is like literally stay in your lane, right? Like, stay in your lane, here it is, don't veer off. And I thought that it was interesting to think about, do you have free will, right? And I think that it played out when he was like, am I a robot trying to get through, which was a moment of humor, but he's like, I don't even know if I'm a human or an alien or a living being, right? I know he's an alien, but he's like, am I a living thing? Which again brings to this idea of will versus being a robot, which I think was explored in WandaVision. I think it comes back to Casey being like, you know, Loki was going to be like, I'm going to gut you like a fish. And Casey's like, what's a fish?
What's a fish?
And which was my honorable quote mention. It's like, what's a fish? But these people who are born into the TVA and groomed to be operatives for the TVA, what will do they have, even though that they're living beings, right? And I think that, like I said, I think it, in some ways it was almost over the top how much this idea of free will and power was playing out, juxtaposed against Loki raging that he should be the one to dictate it against the agency that is dictating it. It was super interesting watching it. I think it would have been more poignant and more powerful if it had been a person of color doing that. I think that would have been really delving into the dredges of our societal fabric, but allowing a white man to do it, I think in some ways kept it a little bit more light. So I'm still mulling over that. I'm still thinking through that.
Go ahead.
I think I'm in great company, and these are exactly the people that I want to pose it to. Are trickster figures, in your opinion, not just Loki, but trickster figures, are they narcissists, would you say? A lot of people say that, like, you know, when you look at mythology, like tricksters are like the precursor to the modern narcissist. What do you think? Because prior to this episode, I would definitely have said that Loki is an absolute narcissist.
Okay, so I'm thinking of, like, you know, there's Loki, Anansi, the Raven. Mm-hmm. In some ways, like, it's cockiness, but in other ways, it always ultimately, well, I don't think I'd go as far as to say it's like narcissism so much as it's like I'm cunning and I can get my way out of this. Mm-hmm. Because in all of those mythologies, there's usually a heart that comes into play at some point, you know, whether it's Loki and his son and, you know, Fenrir, or, you know, the Raven and his children, and, you know, the Anansi. Like,
I would almost say it's antisocial personality disorder.
Yeah, I don't.
You know, and that's why the arcs are so, you know, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna be the one, you know, it's like I'm gonna be that person that's gonna tame the serial killer and make them the perfect boyfriend. That I'm gonna be that person. But that's like all of these books and mythos and fables, right? It's saying that you take this character and you give them heart. It's not that they had it. It's like they're going to learn it through this. And I think that, you know, when I think about antisocial, it's that there's like this lying, it's this conning of others, it's violating people's rights, the disregard for rules and for safety, it's impulsive behavior, you know, there's this lack of remorse and almost like a joy that you get out of, you know, seeing your ruse carry through. And I think it goes back to this, like, do you enjoy the suffering question that was posed? We can talk about later, but it's almost, it's not the suffering, it's the scenario, right? It's seeing your plan come to fruition. And I think it's less narcissistic and more antisocial, really. But
also, I need to correct myself. I think it's the coyote, not the raven. Sorry, I'm getting my mythology all mixed up. It's the coyote.
My experience, well, my favorite trickster is Heath Ledger's Joker. And I always experienced the trickster as a thwarter of human intention, so that they get extreme delight when they ruin your plans, whoever you are. So they're completely caught up in the world of intentionality, right? They're completely caught up in the human endeavor of trying to make something happen. And they come in and they take glee out of destroying, out of making sure that you don't get to make what happens. And for me, that that's why they're called chaotic. They're not chaotic because the world boils, right? They're chaotic because they prevent people from completing their plans. So in that sense, they're kind of, I would say, childish, in the sense that they don't want anybody else to succeed. At the same time, when you see someone like Anansi, right, there's a group he's protecting. You know, there's a group that prays to him, that sacrifices to him, and so he uses his trickster skills to help them in the face of other groups, but at the same time plays tricks on them in their group. So I like the way I just like this idea of the trickster being a sort of metaphor for Murphy's Law in terms of our plans, right? Nothing ever goes as planned, and tricksters make sure that happens, right?
Yeah, they're kind of like the chaos theory agent that kind of gets thrown in, right? And so I don't know that it's always to their benefit either. Like the stories around Coyote, now that I have the right name in my head, you know, he puts himself in positions to where like it's uncomfortable for him too, but like it causes chaos, and it's interesting to see what would happen and to see what the choices of humanity would be. And so I like your point about the narcissism though, and where, like, how does that come out?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you find yourself, a trickster finds himself like the Joker, and finds himself doing all this weird stuff to thwart Batman's plans. And you'll find out he'll like take it where he is at any given moment, in a hospital, wearing a nurse's outfit, setting bombs. Why are you there? I am there because of someone else, right? I am there because I'm trying to upset Batman's plans. That's for me, that lack of awareness that you're actually here because of someone else, right? That you're more dependent on them than they are on you. It's kind of missing in the way they think about themselves.
Well, it fits very neatly. I'm pushing my antisocial lens. It fits very neatly into antisocial personality disorder, right? Where it's never my fault. Like, they made me do it. And,
right.
you know, I think about, I think about Bugs Bunny, right? Bugs Bunny is the trickster. In Coyote and the Roadrunner is the trickster. The other thing that they don't often have a understanding of is the difference between right and wrong. And I think, you know, to bring it back, I think what we saw in the Avengers movie is Loki gradually understanding right and wrong. And now you've taken it back to this old version of Loki who doesn't necessarily have that conceptualization, because a trickster, what's common across them is a scrambling for power, right? Almost all the tricksters are trying to get power, which I think pulls for that narcissism piece. And it's this like isolated power monger in a way. I love tricksters. I think like Loki, the Fox myths, I like all of them. And I always end up sympathizing for them because they always get thwarted in the end somehow, right? But I think that's humanity's way of saying there has to be right and wrong. There has to be morality. Otherwise, as Leandra brought up, it falls into chaos, right? Because they are agents of chaos. And so I think part of this show will be, how do you instill right and wrong? Because this variant of Loki has missed out on that growth, right? In the last, you know, when we think about Loki at the end, his trick to convince Thanos that he was on his side, it didn't work, right? Like, it didn't work. He ultimately didn't fulfill his role of a trickster, carrying it through. And I think that's because he started understanding morality. And once you understand and internalize morality, can you actually be a trickster?
It's interesting that I love that. And the thing is, whose morality, right? In other words, Loki's powers, his trickster skills, whatever, don't work because Thanos is a greater power. Greater just meaning he's power, whatever that means, can subvert Loki's space. So Thanos definitely felt he had a morality, right? And I think this I hope that where the show goes is they show that living is this tension between the attempts to create a right and wrong in an open world. and life is that space, as opposed to we've got it all right or it's all wrong. That tension is living. Anyway, we'll see what they do with it. But so, did we answer the question on Tricksters?
Yeah. Thank you. That was great.
It's going on that one. Anyone else? Any favorite lines, favorite scenes, favorite characters?
I really like that robot with the little squiggly face in the elevator. I was like, I like that robot and that cat. I feel like they really stole the shows. But
this is fine as Guardian leather. I just love that.
As though that means anything in a place where Infinity Stones are kept as paperweights.
Yeah. Really. And I loved Casey. Casey was great.
He was. I also, like you were mentioning the aesthetics. There's the scene where they're explaining the TVA, and it looks like the show you'd see at the beginning of a drive-in theater when you're going to see a movie at the drive-in. And it was just done for like at least 40 seconds, just uninterrupted drive-in animation. And I thought, okay, that was very, very clever. That sucked me in. That's a way to get all the parents to hang around and watch it with their kids.
Yeah, and Miss Minutes was voiced by Tara Strong, which is also very, very cool.
Yeah.
I had no idea she was a part of the show, so yeah.
I didn't either. Also, the TVA was designed after the Marquee, Tanya, in Atlanta. You know how the Marquee Hotel has the big... So if you were like picking up on some of those vibes, that's why, because it was designed after this giant atrium, which is where Tanya and I spent all of our grad school. So I thought you might enjoy a little bit of tidbit.
I did enjoy that. No, I don't know that I had any more favorite scenes or characters. I just have a question, but we can hold the question till later. But here's my question. I'm sure they're picking specific dates and times and locations that the variant is visiting, and I have no idea why. Like, why 1549 France and 1858 Oklahoma? Like, I don't know. I'm not in the weeds enough in the Marvel universe and the comics to know the meaning of those dates, and I didn't know if anybody else did know why this variant is visiting these specific times. I'm so curious about it.
I thought the 1549 one was Joan of Arc. I mean, that's just the vibe I got when I saw it, and I have no answer for the Oklahoma one.
Yeah, I haven't connected those dots yet.
But I do think the devil she pointed to in 15.
If you look like the trickster, like you had the answer, you start gonna tell
No, I tried looking up what happened in these things, and the only thing I can give you on 1549 is that's the flight. There's some flight.
Well, I think they're the same. I think they're both. In other words, when Joan of Arc character, who I think she points to the devil, and then you see the variant, whatever, in Oklahoma, I think they're the same Loki. Right. Yes. So I think they're going to run through time trying to, what they're going to do, I'm not sure. Right. And I think Mobius was trying to suss out, as you got to earlier, he's a trickster. At the same time, there is a bit of a heart there. And he comes up with stupid. What's that? In some versions, exactly.
Also, Joan of Arc died in 1431. So
they just well, I tried hard. It looked good. I don't know. I couldn't figure out why they'd be there then. They should have listened to me. Joan of Arc would have been better. But I think we're chasing the same demon. Or the same god or whatever through time. That'd be my guess. And we'll see more of those, I suspect.
So I know the only thing I had, and it only works for Oklahoma, is in the comics, that's where New Asgard is located, in Oklahoma. But
okay, see how she did that, guys? We didn't know that.
But they're different Oklahomas.
Right, yeah.
One is Braxton and one is Selena. And so I don't know what they're doing. I was just like, what have I missed? I still don't know about France. I have no idea. I still don't know about Oklahoma and why 1858? Because I don't know.
I obviously missed both.
Somebody should let us know. That's what.
There you go.
Oklahoma even a state in 1858?
I don't know.
Where did I see something about that?
That's a good question. I don't know geography or history, so
no, but
I'm thinking like Civil War. Yeah, I don't think Oklahoma was even a thing at that time.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, I will look
you
that
are
up.
right. Oklahoma was founded in 1907. So are they just giving us locations for what it is in 2022? Like,
I love it.
Or is it bad editing and fact checking?
Is it a continuity error in a show like about continuity?
Yeah.
My mind is blown.
You can't do it time
asterisks or parentheses or something.
Yeah. No, I could be. It's interesting which timeline they're going to make false. Our current timeline, or in other words,
with Oklahoma State and another timeline in 18.
Well, that's in our timeline.
Where this is taking me. I don't like it.
But that's how it goes.
Am I a robot vibe?
That's how it goes with time travel, right? You know.
I don't know. I don't know, Scott.
No, I think if that timestamp was wrong about Oklahoma in the show, then they're tracking down a deviant timeline.
We're being such nerds right now. I just want to say.
The best.
I'm
nerds.
like geography nerds.
Well, you just blew my mind with the continuity error in a continuity show, and I was like, my brain fizzled out there. So.
Well, there's all kinds of people watching us, laughing at us, but that's because they dig this kind of conversation, and they got all the scoop that we missed. So, all right. So that about wraps it up for tonight's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Fellow Valkyrie, please tell the audience where they can find you on social media, and we shall start with Cianna.
You can find me on Twitter at CC Greaves. That's at CICIGREA, V as in Victor, E, S as in Sam.
Fantastic. Leandra.
You can find me on Twitter at Parris, Leandra at PARRIS, Leandra.
Excellent. And Tanya.
I'm a woman of mystery. You can't find me on social media, so stay tuned.
Fantastic. I'm on Twitter at dark_loops, and you can find all episodes of the Valkyrie Files at the Dark Loops Productions channel on YouTube. If you'd like to leave feedback about this podcast, please leave it below on this YouTube channel page or send a message to darkloopsproductions@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to read it at the end of our next podcast. So there it is, from all of us to all of you. Big hugs, and remember, paperwork is power.
Power.
Bye-bye.